Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Bonsai Stuff podcast. It's me, Scott Martin, from Bonsai Matsu, and it's been a long year. I apologise that the podcasts haven't been flowing as freely as what they should have, what I thought they would, but as I'm sure you can all understand and appreciate, it's been one of those years where things don't always go to plan, and you have to adapt and roll with the punches. So I wanted to get another podcast done for everybody for the Christmas break here in Australia. Just a reminder, I'm in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. So what I'm talking about applies to my environment, my trees, and that sort of stuff. And I wanted this podcast to be a review, a yearly review on I suppose what I've learnt for starters with bonsai specifically, but what's happened has shaken and rocked the world and changed it in ways that we thought was never going to be possible. But we are here. We are becoming stronger as a community. I mean, a bonsai community, and we'll roll with it. We'll keep progressing, keep moving forward. So, what have I learned this year? Sometimes having too much time may not be beneficial, which I found personally myself when we went into a lockdown period, and there was a little bit of joy, I suppose, in that, because there was planned to be a lot of time to work on trees and do things that I wouldn't normally have because of working or other commitments. But I found that having that much time on my hands led to procrastination, I suppose, and second guessing of things, and maybe not doing what I instinctively would have done if my time was a little bit more managed, a little bit tighter, and I had to get onto things. Also found that doing it correctly the first time makes a massive difference. Not having to go back and rework and look at things that you've done possibly a little bit rushed or a little bit incorrectly or a little bit slack, doing it right the first time does make a big difference. And also that the correct techniques produce results. So getting the techniques right and taking the time to be precise with what you do will make a massive difference. So good technique is something you can't rush. You've got to learn that. But once you've got it, you've got to make sure that you practice with it as well and don't slip into bad habits. Also found that developing a plan for your bonsais is much better than just rushing into something or making a rash decision without having a proposed outcome for what you're doing. It's easy to cut it off, but it's a little bit more difficult to put it back on. So this is where the procrastination thing kicks in as well, because you can look at something over and over and over and, decide that, no, I'll come back to that because I don't want to cut it off. But sooner or later, you've got to make those tough decisions. And I think that for me, it's what instinctively, when I look at a tree now, I feel what's right with it and get a plan in my head as to what's going to happen with it, not just 1 year, but 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the track, and how it's going to develop and how it's going to look and what the structure is going to be like with all that development that it's going to have. That's what I'm talking about is, when you have that plan that you want to proceed with, don't procrastinate anymore. Don't just willy-nilly go chopping off branches and apex and whatever else. But you've got to make sure that when you do have that plan, you've got to proceed with it. Maybe writing it down. That's a good thing as well. Having if you've only got a few trees, definitely work out what your plans are and what your thoughts are and write them down. So when you come back to the tree somewhere in the future, you can have an idea of what you were thinking at the time that you last worked on it. Because sometimes, you might only work on a tree once, twice a year. So coming back to it when you've got more stock or more commitments with your time, it's often very hard to work out exactly what you were thinking at that time. So planning is really, really good, and good technique. They're the couple of things that I've really focused on this year. Another thing, with the world becoming a smaller place every day, you look around the world at what's happening and all the different different countries around the world and different cities, and everyone's sort of feeling the same sort of way around the world. I know that bonsai people around the world have the same questions that need answering, and I've found that specifically through things like this this podcast and through social media and that sort of thing. And there's a really common thread to when people ask a question. It's not that they're doing it to pest you. It's not that they're doing it to, chew up your valuable time, which we've all got. It's because everyone's got the same questions. And I think that there's a responsibility for people in the bonsai community to reach out and help each other. And if you can do it in a constructive way, because it's very easy for people to be I suppose negative in what they do or how they provide information. But I think that with the common issues that we've got, if you can step up and provide some kind of help, then that's great. One piece of advice I'd offer to anyone that's looking for advice is you want to be mindful about where the advice is coming from, because it is easy to freely give information out to people, but really you want to know the source of that information. You don't just read something on the internet and take it for gospel and move on with it. The best advice I can give you is use that old approach. Really? Okay, can you show me your trees? Can you send me some photos of your trees? Or at least do your research before you reach out to someone and ask them for an opinion on something, because you might find that you start taking those steps backwards, unfortunately, by following the wrong advice. And the last thing with advice is also to be very mindful of where the person is that's giving you advice, because their conditions may be extremely different from what you've got. So you want to make sure that you're being very wise in what you do. So what else have I learned? What has 2020 taught me? 2020's taught me that in society with so much white noise, it can become a little bit too loud at times to do any good. And sometimes focusing on bonsai and the constant need for our time and effort can be a brilliant distraction. They're constantly changing, and what you see today may be different tomorrow. So it's nice to step back and pull the pressure valve every now and then and let your focus be somewhere else. And I found that the routine work that we do, like in repotting and spraying and watering and all the little mundane tasks, they just keep drawing me back to a peaceful, relaxing world, and it's something that I can control. And 2020 has been something which is outside all of our control and completely unexpected, but I find that in my own little world, my own little space, where I've got my trees and I know what putting food on at a certain time does. I know what watering and spraying and all that sort of stuff. All the little things. It's allowed me to feel that control that I've lost elsewhere in parts of my life. So I found that's been really, really, really positive thing to do. So bonsai, it's a lifesaver for a lot of people. And one thing I did like throughout lockdown was that a lot of new people turned to bonsai. I had contact with a lot of new enthusiasts, and it was pretty common that when they found they couldn't go outdoors, their first thoughts were to bonsai, which is lovely. And I just really hope that passion continues and nurtures and becomes something that stays with people for a long, long time, because it's really one of those things that we want to make sure that it's like taking advice from people. Someone who starts doing bonsai gets wrong advice, kills their tree, and we never see them again. Whereas the bonsai community should be one that's growing at a rapid rate. It's such a fantastic and brilliant hobby for everybody to be involved with, and sometimes for some of us more than just a hobby. It's, it becomes so much more, which is really valuable. So it was really nice that, it wasn't something which people had to see on TV as part of a series on Netflix or, a movie or in the media or anything like that. It's just, bang, when I can't go out and see trees in the, in parks and whatever else, what's the next best thing? Well, the next best thing is bonsai, which is lovely. So also learned that there's a lot of very good and kind people involved in bonsai. It's, a lot of internal support for each other. People reaching out to make sure that I'm okay when really, they need support themselves. And it was really kind and heartfelt. So, we're all part of a community which knows no bounds really, and it's heartwarming. So, thank you to everyone who did reach out to me, and I'm hopeful that I'm certain that we're going to be stronger coming out the other side of this. So, thank you very much, and love yous all. It's great. So now the podcast going to move into a new area. I'm going to call it the 1 to 2 Conundrum. All right, so let me set the scene. I've just finished decandling all my black pines, and even though this year the number of trees in the collection hasn't grown, the number of candles to be taken off has shot away. The trees look great, like they're very healthy. They're looking really, really good. Lots of growth this year. Fertilising's been great. Trees that need repotted last year, I found their growth this year, a year and a bit later, was really positive, and there's lots of backbudding around the place as well. And the trees just, I got a really good feel for them. That maybe it is because of this 2020 extra time that the trees had, as I was just saying before. Maybe that's part of the reason, but everything looks really, really healthy. But the rule of 1 to 2, or the guide of 1 to 2, is where one branch should divide into no more than 2 items. Okay, so 1 becomes 2. If 1 becomes 3 or 4 or whatever, you get a cluster of growth, and you get a swelling, and you get this bunch of growth that just gets too thick. So as a general guide, and I don't like saying rule, but a general guide, each branch should divide into two branches. So when we decandle, you take off the spring candle, and then new buds grow, and you might get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new buds, whatever it is. Winter comes around, you clean it back and leave no more than 2 buds. So basically 1 becomes 2, then 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 32, 32 becomes 64, and so on. It just starts really to jump away. So, if you're starting decandling and you've got 8 odd branches, well, that's, there's about 30 seconds of your time. That's no problems. Next year it becomes 16, still pretty quick. But by the time you're getting up to the couple of hundred on the tree, that's an investment of time. Then the year after, a couple hundred becomes, say 400. Everything going to plan, that is. It's not always the case. You remove branches, you change things, you thin things out. It starts getting too thick when 1 to 2 goes on year on year on year. Your growth becomes too compact, and you don't get sunlight in there. You don't, whatever. But I'm just going through the scenario of 1 to 2. So bear with me. So suddenly 10 minutes becomes not 20 minutes. 20 minutes becomes half an hour, because you're exponentially starting to grow the amount of growth that you've got on the tree, with it doubling every year. So then half an hour becomes an hour and a half. This is just for one tree. An hour and a half the year after becomes 2.5 hours, because you've got to spend so much time doing the work on this thing. So one tree is no problems, but I don't know a single bonsai person that's got one tree. I mean, we are all nutters. We just keep growing our collections, and I think that when you're enthusiastic when you first start, and you've got limited branches, this 1 to 2 thing doesn't even enter your head. Like, you're not thinking 5 years down the track, or you're thinking of acquisition. You think about trees in the collection and things that you want to look at. So when you've got plenty of trees, not enough time to invest, what do? So I've come up with some options for all of us. All right, option 1. You do as much as you can with the time that you have. So what's the result of that? As the trees develop more and they get more and more growth on them, you end up with a pretty average group of trees, because you're not growing the time that you need as the number of branches and the amount of work that's needed on that collection starts to grow as well. So therefore, you do a little bit here, a little bit there. Sometimes trees miss a year, which means all the hard work's gone in 1 year, and your trees start to tread water. They start to plateau. Like, the massive and significant growth and changes in development in structure that you had early days suddenly starts to dwindle, and you start to become less and less satisfied with your trees, and it's not because the trees aren't developing, it's because you're not investing the time that's needed to continually develop those trees. So that's option 1. So then, other side of the coin, option 2, commit more time. The result, eventually, there's not much time for anything, because if you keep a collection of trees that requires more than twice as much work year on year for what they do, sooner or later, there's other parts of your life, and we all do have lives outside bonsai, which we sometimes forget. Then you suddenly start running short of time in other really important areas of your life. So you can't become a hermit to bonsai. So there's got to be a better option. So option 3, this is the one that none of us like. Option 3, reduce your collection. Now, the result, it's good, it's logical, but eventually what happens is, when you start to plateau your growth and you get more into the refinement stage of your trees, I know for me personally, one of the kickers that I get is developing new stock. I love getting a new tree, and I love putting my fingerprint on it, and I love making the changes and setting a tree on a path. But that tree suddenly gets to the point where it gets into the maintenance mode, and you're doing the routine work, and that 1 to 2 starts to really jump away, and then you're in the same position as what you were, with at the very start, where you've got these trees that require all this work, but you can't maintain them. So reducing your trees is great, but you've got to be disciplined to make sure that you don't continue to look at buying more trees. Option 4. This is a good one. Option 4 is get quicker. Now that sounds really easy, but I talked earlier about developing good techniques, and good techniques is something that you need to learn. You need to learn with a teacher. You need someone who is good and proficient at bonsai, that's willing to provide time, and it'll come at a cost, no doubt about it. But picking the right teacher will pay dividends for your tree somewhere, that you can't put a finger on until it's maybe 4 or 5 years down the track, and you start seeing the development that they've got. So your trees will take bigger steps forward a lot faster by getting quicker under the guidance of a teacher, and developing the techniques that you can't read about in a book. You really need to be shown these things hands on, and this online world of Zoom and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, that's great. But I think one, getting in front of someone and being shown something hands on, for me, is a great result. So getting better at the technique and getting quicker is going to give you what you need. Option 5, you can outsource it, which is still a really good option, and it's not something to be sneezed at. Your trees get to a point, and it might not be every year, but it might be sort of that every 3 years, or when time becomes very short, you can outsource it to a professional. Just the result, I say this with my hand on my heart, buyer beware, because you need to be really, really careful who you're employing to look after your trees. As I said before, advice and everything that comes with the online world of bonsai is to be taken with a grain of salt, and you really need to do your research. But it's a great option for you that you do get someone involved at a delicate point in the tree's life cycle to help out, to allow you to take it to future development stages. All right, option 6, and this is the one that I chose. Become a bonsai professional. Result: you're no longer questioned by anybody in the house when you bring new trees into the yard. Everything is tax deductible and everything is essential to your job. So you can put a lot more time into things. You can have things come and go from the yard. You can maybe splurge every now and then more than what you know you should. But having that tag as a bonsai professional suddenly gives you a lot of leeway with things, especially around the house. So, no, but seriously, I think that that 1 to 2 conundrum is something which you'll all come across. And if there's people out there now going, yeah, you know what, that's right. I cut corners. I took shortcuts on this tree, or you have to be honest with yourself. You don't have to be honest with anyone else, but you have to be honest with yourself and have a look at your trees and think not now, but 2, 3, 4 years down the track, what are they going to be at, and are you going to have enough time to put into taking them to where not only they should go, which is what they're built for, but also for your own personal satisfaction. Whether you're going to be entirely happy with everything that you've got in your collection, and it's something you need to think about. All right, so now I just want to talk about record keeping with your trees and with your collection. I think everybody starts bonsai with a pretty thorough plan for what they're going to do, and you take photos, you document, you number your trees, you identify them somehow, whatever it is. And it's great. I love it because it's a real motivator. But you suddenly get to the point with your trees where, as I was saying, you might run short of time, and that record taking based on the number of trees that you've got in your collection becomes harder and harder and harder. So I get asked, what do I do with mine? And I take photos. I like taking photos just on my phone. They don't need to be anything fantastic, but I find that a picture tells 1,000 words, in that it will show me when I look back through my photos. I can very easily download my photos. I can very easily put them into subfolders, and based on the tree or the species or whatever it is, and I can look back on things down the track and say, well, where was it? Or if I want to see how a tree's developing, there's nothing better than going back to a photo from 3 or 4 years ago and finding information, because the picture will show you exactly where it was, and you can look at the branches and look at the buds or the leaf size or the nabari or the bark or whatever it is, and a photo very quickly will show you exactly what's happened to that tree over time. So, taking photos, it's great record keeping. It also helps you. What helps me, and I think this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. It helps me develop plans for my trees to show me more specifically where I've got a weakness. When I look at the tree in real life, I'll walk around and I'll look and I'll go, tick of approval, looks really good, really happy with that. I'll stand back, I'll take a photo, I'll look at the photo of the very tree that's in front of me, and I'll see something, branches in the wrong spot, or there's something that's too long, or the apex needs to be moved a little to the left or to the right, or whatever it is, or anything. Maybe it's tree's too high in the pot, or something about the pot's not right. Whatever it is, I personally find that by looking at a photo, I can really quickly identify if I've got something that I need to focus on with that tree, and maybe tweak or put in the back of my head, okay, so now what I'm going to do is I need to let this branch develop and grow this area so it does this, or whatever it is. And I find the photos, for me, are a really good way of very quickly seeing and identifying that sort of stuff. I also find that they provide me great satisfaction for the small stuff. It's the small, subtle changes on a design that I get a lot of joy out of. Just like I said, a little tweak of a branch here or there, and suddenly the whole tree looks very different. And seeing things through the lens of my camera shows me these things very clearly. And if you can put up bring up the photos, 2 or 3 of them, for the last 3 years in a row, and you put them side by side on your computer screen, and you look at them and go, wow, look at that little tweak that I did. This is the result of it. And I think that's when you get into longevity with trees, you get to see things like that. You might not see them for, like I said, years, but you do, and it's a great motivator too. The fact that you every year have taken a photo of a particular tree in your collection, it's time to do the work. It gives you a bit of a spring in your step to make you get out there and do it, because you get to take another photo and you get to add it to the collection, and suddenly the evolution of the tree continues. I do a lot of work for people, and one great satisfaction not only they get but I get also is taking photos, and all of a sudden, I'll get a photo sent back to me. Oh, do you remember where this tree was 3 years ago? Here's where it was. Look at it now. It's like, wow, it's great. It's very satisfying. So I think that, you don't need to be overly complex with the record taking or record maintenance for your trees, but I've found that by taking photos, it can make it really, 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 really simple for you. Alrighty, so now the year's wrapping up. It's late December. We've just had Christmas, so Merry Christmas, everybody. We're in the heart of heading towards the heart of summer here in Melbourne. It's not feeling extremely warm at the moment, but definitely there must be warmer days coming. So I just wanted to share what are my plans for this time of the year. Now, I know it sounds really weird, but right now my thoughts are around repotting season, which is still 7 months away from where we are. But you need to plan for these things. You need to start thinking about your materials and your supplies, which trees are going to look at needing repotting. And now's a perfect time to work out exactly which trees need repotting, because watering is super critical this time of the year. Obviously, I'm not telling you something you don't know. Watering trees in summer is really important, but you can also identify which trees are harder to water, and they're the ones that you should be flagging definitely that need repotting, because you're leaving them another year will mean that when summer's here the following year, it's going to be almost impossible to water them. If you're struggling now, another year's growth and another year's root growth in the container will make it very, very difficult. So I start also thinking about pots and that sort of thing. Buying pots out of season, outside repotting season, means A, there's greater supply and choice, but B, they're also cheaper, because prices on pots generally tend to go up with demand increasing as well. So it's not a bad time to start picking and choosing pots that you want to start using. Also done a final prune for the trees as they head towards the summer dormancy period. So any of the long shoots on a lot of that aren't for sacrifice or sacrificial branches have all been removed now. So the trees, they shouldn't get too much new growth on them just yet. So it's a nice time. The older leaves on the branches that have extended have all hardened off, got that waxy coating on them, so they're ready for the heat of summer to come along. And by doing that final prune, you sort of put them into a protective state, I suppose, where they're not going to start pushing buds as the temperatures start increasing. And then autumn sort of starts to head towards us. The temperatures start to drop, and then the trees will take off again. So it's definitely something that I've worked on. And my black pines too, I've got quite a few of those. Decandling's all done, so now it's time to sit back and enjoy watching the new buds develop around the cut site, which has started to happen already. A couple of weeks down the track, everything's starting to move and do what it should. So I find that's very satisfying for me. I do use the build up towards Christmas, probably the last month. So let's say late November and December, as a time to look for flaws in my watering system. My automated watering system, my preference always is to hand water the trees, but that's not always possible. So you've got to be, I'm always a realist with it, that you need a backup automated system for the days that you're not home and it's going to be stinking hot and there's a strong wind and things are going to dry out really quickly. It's saying that you're going to hand water everything, but then you're not home for 8 hours is possibly not the best thing for your trees. So I do use the build-up before the warm weather gets there to look for flaws. So I've been spending quite a bit of time improving the watering system. I was just chatting with a few mates the other day about it, and it seems to be that almost every year I'm making improvements on the watering system, which, I look at it now, I feel like I've got it perfect, but I know that next year, November will come around, December, I'll start working the system again, and there'll be further improvements that I'll make. It just seems to never stop. So that's something else. Also, shade cloth for deciduous. That's all been rolled out now. The trees that need more care have been put into a more protected area. So that's something that I'd strongly recommend that everyone gets into as well.
I spend my youth dropping coins in a wishing well.
All right, so we're starting to head towards the end of 2020. Thank goodness. A little bit of a cheer from everybody. We've made it. Well done. It's going to be, we're not out of the woods yet, but we're certainly heading towards greener pastures. And Australia's in a very good place, and the rest of the world with positive talk about vaccines and things like that. Hopefully the bonsai world can reconnect once again. So as we sort of head towards New Year's, what's my New Year's resolution this year? What am I going to do to be a better person? What am I going to do to help the world in any way that I possibly can? No, it sounds egotistical, but really as I was putting some thought into this podcast, my resolution is really simple this year. It's just to feed the bonsai flame wherever it grows and to be a resource whenever and wherever I possibly can. I've found that everyone's got the same questions. Everyone in bonsai needs that bit of guidance, and I really enjoy the fact that people reach out to me, and whether they're from Chile or they're from just around the corner, it doesn't bother me. I think that it's great that I can in some way, I suppose, feed the bonsai flame to help those people, whoever they are, in whatever circumstance, to be confident to take the next step with their bonsai, and that their bonsai journey doesn't stop because there's no one at the other end of the email or the instant message that pops up because they're too busy. I think it's really important for me to make sure that I never lose that perspective that if I can help someone as I would have wanted to be helped at some point in my career or my bonsai journey, then that's me. That's what I'm going to do. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate everything this year more than ever from everybody, my family, my friends, my bonsai friends, my bonsai community. It's been a roller coaster, and they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think we're all a lot stronger at the other end of this, and our bonsai are going to be better going forward. And I want to wish everyone a very safe holiday season here in Australia and around the world, and may the new year be exactly what we all want it to be. I thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, which will be next year, with a whole new plan for the podcast. So I'm using this summer to work on a new format for the podcast for next year. I wish you all the very best. Thank you for tuning in. Please stay in touch. Email scott@bonsaimatsu.com, Bonsai Matsu on Facebook or Instagram. Reach out, as a lot of you have been doing, and please continue to do. I'd love to hearing from you and being involved in your bonsai in any way that I possibly can. So until next time, please take care, please look after yourselves, and happy bonsai.